friends that were not able to attend, the webinar is recorded and will be posted in our Career Development Center website YouTube link, and you can access our YouTube page there. So we just started recording, so really quick. J. Daniel Gomez, I'm a career advisor at the Career Development Center, and this is our webinar on networking. You have a network, you just don't know it yet. So I'll begin with some brief content, and we'll pass it on to our panelists shortly. So networking. What it is, just a dictionary definition really quick, is the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and to develop professional and social contacts. I want to expand a bit more on this and add on that it's also an art of relationship building and making these meaningful connections and mutual beneficial alliances that take time. It's an ongoing process. I'm a strong believer that through these interactions, hopefully you develop some consistency to speak with these individuals and develop trust and reliability, especially if you get some great advice to keep them in the loop as you are proceeding on the advice you received. So why is it important to network, especially as a college student? Now, it could be as a way to learn more about specific career fields. Maybe you're interested on working for a company. You want to know what it's like to work there. You can network with field folks that work there and maybe get some great insight from them as employees of that company. Or you want to learn what it's like to do that kind of profession and what does a day in the life of look like. Now, beyond building this knowledge about careers or different industries, it's also a great opportunity to tap into a hidden job or internship marketplace. So a lot of opportunities sometimes are not posted in public job sites or job boards. They're only, kind of promoted by word of mouth. And some of the resources that you can access at the end of these slides that will be emailed to all the participants today, you'll see that it's not something new. It's something that's been going on. And a lot of the employers like to hire someone who they personally know or worked with before, or someone who's been referred by an employee. And lastly, they tend to hire someone with significant work experience, skills, or abilities, and that show great potential as a future employee, right? So for college students, when you think about kind of where you are in your career development, you don't quite have the significant amount of experience or skill sets. So networking can help you, balance that out and connect you directly to opportunities that sometimes are not promoted anywhere. So let's continue with, how do you network? Now, I know we're in a virtual hybrid environment right now with the pandemic, but there's still a lot of networking opportunities taking place. And sometimes here's where you have a network you just don't know it yet comes in. Your family, your friends, your neighbors. Sometimes they may not work in the company or in the career that you're interested in, but guess what? They may know someone that does. Hopefully, as you hear our panelist stories, you'll catch some of these, potential ways to network come alive through their stories. So, pay attention to that. But this is a way to help you think that maybe, your barber, sometimes they have a lot of variety of clients. They may be able to connect it with someone that they know. Now, as a college student, you have access to your professors, also called faculty, to staff members. You have access to the Career Center. And we know a lot of people. So we can also be a bridge and a connection for you to expand your network. Alumni, all the alumni speaking today are on LinkedIn. And I'll speak a bit on LinkedIn in a second, but you can get on LinkedIn and connect with alumni of the university as well. There's a ton of student clubs and organizations at Fresno State, and that's another way to network and meet students. I know there's a ton of professional focused student organizations, and then they invite folks already working in the field to be a speaker at their meetings. And that's a great way to connect with these individuals too. There's also professional organizations that you can join as a college student, and you'll be surrounded by colleagues and professionals in the field already. There is a variety of career fairs and different employer events happening every semester through the Career Development Center. There is a career fair taking place February 23rd, focusing on agriculture. There's a more general and broad career fair happening in March 9th this semester. So details are to come via email, but attend these events and get to know employers and companies and introduce yourself and see what they have to offer. There's also a variety of community events, Chamber of Commerce, community job fairs, or just, put yourself out there and speak and talk to people. And last but not least, as you make these connections, I recommend to use the college student card. That you are interested in a career, that you want to learn more, show this enthusiasm and excitement to hear people's stories, and you'll find that that could be really useful. So this is just a quick image from our career success guide to help you think about all these connections that you have and sometimes you don't realize you have access to. Now, a few tips before we pass it over to our panelist. When you network, it's important to introduce yourself. And this is a good practice for when you even interview. A lot of interviews start with tell me about yourself. So here's some basic pointers of introducing your name. What are you majoring in? What university you're attending? What are your kind of career goals? Where do you want to be in the future? And what have you done so far to get there? We have a really cool cartoonish video that shows you an example of how to do your elevator pitch or your introduction that I recommend you to watch. As you engage in these conversations, express gratitude if you met someone at a workshop. Say, thank you for sharing this information at a career fair. Thank you for coming to my university and share the opportunities with your company. So gratitude goes a long way. Humility is really important. That way they can find a connection and it'll be kind of more willing to speak with you. Find a mutual ground. Where these people that you're meeting alumni of Fresno State too? Are they the same major as you? Did you guys go to the same high school in the area? So see if there's any mutual connection, and that helps with relationship building. And be interested in what they have to share, ask for advice, and once again, thank them for any advice or information they share with you. There's another really cool video that I invite you to watch once you get these slides. And you can break it down into 3 areas of networking: of stating what you want, the jawbone, then you can, sorry, the wishbone, the jawbone. Do you know what you're talking about? Do your research on the careers you're interested in, so when you meet professionals, you have more in-depth questions that you could ask. And lastly, backbone. Some of the things you'll realize when you network is sometimes you may never hear back, or you'll get a no. It doesn't mean that you stop. You keep reaching out to folks, and hopefully you hear some yeses yet that could change your life. So I'd like to close with an invitation to our website at the Career Development Center. We have a webpage in our website dedicated to networking advice and tools, especially to get you on LinkedIn and find great connections that way. So there's great videos in there and a lot of content to coach you and prep you. And also an invitation. You can always reach out to the Career Development Center on campus for support in your networking, or preparing to search for opportunities or connect with our alumni. So with that being said, I'm going to invite our panelists into the webinar. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and let's see. There we go. Some of these folks are actually former, I apologize. They are alumni of the university. I work with Mark here at the Career Center, and Christina was a student that I met with, and we had the discussion of networking. So I have a couple of questions for them, but before we start, I want them to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them. So I'm gonna start with Christina. Can you introduce yourself to the webinar?
Hi, my name is Christina Martinez. I graduated from Fresno State with my master's, or in 2020, the tail end of 2020, in marriage, family, child counseling. I'm currently an associate marriage and family therapist. I'm currently living in the Bay Area and working in San Mateo at a practice called Izzo Marriage and Family Therapy. I also graduated from Fresno State with my bachelor's in 2015. And even trail back, I transferred to Fresno State from Fresno City. So I'm sure there's plenty of people that have kind of had that story. Fresno State really was impactful, as well as Fresno City. I really value what I grasped. I'm a Central Valley native, so it feels homey to me. I was involved in the Jordan College um, honors program. They had just started. I did that during my bachelor's, and got to work with Dr. Dyer. I think she's still there, and did some research with her. I did an internship with Misha Thackeray. I'm sure people are probably aware of him, at the martial arts studio. And I did other things within the Valley, like volunteer at Central Valley Children's Hospital. I worked at the suicide hotline. Um, I, let's see, I worked with Heinz Hospice. Yeah, I did kind of quite a bit, all along the lines of working with families, working with kids, which was where I kind of went. Yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell and some of my involvements at Fresno State. And I got the opportunity to work at Fresno State's, or I got to intern at Fresno State's counseling center, at Fresno Family Counseling Center. So yeah, I value my time there.
All right, Christina, thank you for your background, and you were definitely an active student when you were here. I'm going to pass it over to Mark to tell us a bit about himself.
Thank you, and thank you for including me on this panel. So my background stems actually in theater, although now I am a career counselor or a career advisor. So I did my bachelor's degree at Fresno State way back when. I was in the industry for about 30 plus years. I then went on to University of Arizona to get my master's degree in lighting design with the ultimate goal of teaching at the college level, and went out and worked in the industry for, well, started actually before attending Fresno State, working in theater. And then while at Fresno State, I worked as a student assistant with my mentor. So I actually got to work in my industry doing what I enjoyed. And I was given a lot of responsibility by my mentor, oversaw the lab class for lighting and sound. So I really received some great opportunities at Fresno State in my undergrad, and then went out into the workforce to get experience. Eventually ended up teaching at the college level, teaching lighting and sound, teaching introduction to theater, some stage management, and working with students. That was my ultimate goal, and I did reach it. After about 10 years doing that, I realized that I wanted a little more and decided to go back for my second master's at Fresno State for counseling. And while in that program, I realized that there were two things at play. I discovered that theater was not my passion or my purpose. It was a catalyst for my passion and purpose, and that is working with college students. And so instead of just working with one department, I get to now facilitate workshops and discussions with students across the campus. While in the SAC program, which is the Student Affairs and College Counseling program at Fresno State, I interned at the Career Center. And I was fortunate because I started early. In my second semester, I was able to get an internship through a counseling course that Dr. Howard facilitated. And it was the best thing because within the first 2 weeks, I discovered that career services was the direction I wanted to go. I had actually entered the program with the intent of being an athletic academic advisor. But with my experience, I realized that it was actually an asset to help others in career. And so one thing that you may have gleaned, and something that I actually use as part of my discussions, is my pathway was very non-linear, non-traditional, and it's about keeping your options open and looking outside the box, if you will, for those opportunities. And so that's where my input on today's topic will be framed from. So thank you.
All right, Mark, thanks for that background. And yeah, we're happy to have you in the career services, team. I'm Monterey Bay. So I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie to introduce herself and tell us about a bit about herself. It looks like you need to unmute. Yeah.
Sorry. So my name is Stephanie Chavez. I have a master's degree in public administration and a bachelor's degree in communication from Fresno State. And I got the bachelor's degree because I was really, really interested in marketing at the time. And then as time went on, I found myself more interested in government, which is what led me to the public administration master's. And now currently I work at the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. I'm a supervisor there. I supervise my own team in my own department. And actually in the past, I had kind of a weird journey to get to this point. I dabbled in communication and marketing and public affairs for a while. And then I moved over to the HR side of things. I worked in a couple different HR roles. I did recruiting. And now at this point in my career, I'm leaning more towards the administrative side of things. So that's really where my master's degree has come in handy. But in order to get to this point, I really credit my involvement at Fresno State. I made efforts to do service learning courses, and that way I was able to volunteer with the community and get to know people. And then also taking student assistant positions on campus was super important in forming connections. And then I eventually was promoted from my student assistant position to a full-time job at the university. And so all of that really helped me network with people at the university and have those professional contacts available for when I was looking for work and could use their assistance. So yeah, that's kind of my background. I spent a lot of time at Fresno State, and I believe I was in school for 6 years. And I graduated in May of 2020, right when the pandemic hit. So, yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for giving us some background. We're going to start now some questions for the panel. So as I pose the question, I'll disappear for the screen for a bit and I'll come back. So the first question, we'll begin with Stephanie, and then we'll pass the same question to the rest of you guys, is how has networking impacted your career?
I would say networking has impacted my career in its entirety. I feel like I wouldn't have the career that I have now if it weren't for networking. I just feel like you can have as much education and experience as you want, but if you don't have anyone around you who can vouch for that experience and provide a reference for you and write you a letter of recommendation, then there's a lower chance that you will get picked for a position. And especially when I did work in HR and I was a recruiter, and that's one of the first things we look for is, do they have credible references? And so I just found that you need to have connections and people around you if you want a successful career. And as like what was mentioned in the beginning, is that it's also really important to just say hi to the people around you, get to know them, because if you're looking for a job, they may have a friend or a cousin or whatever it may be that has a connection to a job. So you never know what you're going to get when you're talking with people and networking. So it's definitely had an impact on my career in its entirety.
All right, thanks for that response. We're going to pass it over to Mark, and can you share with us how has networking impacted your career and the different worlds you lived in?
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of what Stephanie said, I can totally relate to. At the time, when I was in my first career in theater, LinkedIn wasn't an option. It was all about word of mouth. And you will be amazed at how big of, we live in a really big world. Even the industry you're in may be big, but we are separated by minor degrees of separation. I have many stories where I met somebody on the other side of the country in a different country that had ties back to people I was in school with, either in undergrad or graduate. And so it's really important to take note and take stock of the network that you are already creating. Here's something that hopefully I wish somebody would have told me, is that networking doesn't have to be scary. When you're reaching out to people, those are people that you want to gain knowledge and insight from. You have something in common. And in my case, at the time, it was theater. Now it's a combination of many things, because I do still have that network that I am now utilizing. I utilized when I was at Fresno State, working with the College of Arts and Humanities and reaching out to some of my ex-colleagues and classmates from theater. So the way it's impacted me is, although I realize I have some years on those of you watching, what it comes down to is you are building your network constantly, and take stock of those wonderful people, because you never know what kind of connections they have. And simply by dropping a hello, a check-in, and LinkedIn, of course, is so great, because it's a resource that I didn't necessarily have. And now you can put on there that you're open for discussion. You can reach out to individuals. So I think the impact comes down to recognizing that you have a network and utilizing it. For me, I was able to reach out to some of my mentors, and I still do. I've reached out to Daniel. I've reached out to Jody at Fresno State. I still reach out to Dan Carrion, who was my mentor in theater, to get feedback, to get insight, to be sounding boards. So that's how it has been an asset for me and beneficial.
Great, thanks for that, Mark. I'm going to pass it over to Christina, and if I can maybe highlight something that I know of your background, how you approach networking. I think you had a really particular approach to networking, Christina, and how you went about LinkedIn and reaching out to people through a connection. But go for it.
Yeah. I definitely concur with what Stephanie and Mark had to say. And just to kind of jump off of Mark and his conversation of maintaining relationships with mentors, that has been something that's been really key to me in my networking experience. I built a really strong relationship with Nayantara Rodriguez, who is one of the supervisors and is also a professor in the marriage, family, child counseling program. And when approaching networking from LinkedIn, I got to meet with Daniel and kind of got to explore all of the different outlets that you could find someone. I came to it from, I want to connect to everyone that's connected to Nayantara, because she is my bread and butter. She knows, like, she's probably vetted these people out and has good relationships with them. I trust who's ever is connected to her. And being that I was moving to the Bay Area, coming from Fresno, not having as many connections, that's where I started from ground zero. Was, okay, who's connected to Nayantara and how can I get connected to them, who's in the Bay Area, who's already working as a therapist. And that's kind of gone through the process that associate marriage family therapists have to go through towards licensure. And so that's what I did. I reached out to different therapists in the area that were connected to her. And I found that really fruitful. I got a really good lay of the land, really good feedback as to what agencies to look for, what agencies to steer away from. feedback on how to, like, what good are the good questions to ask. And even with that, in maintaining my relationship with Nayantara, I reached out to her and was like, what questions do I need to be asking the people that I'm going to be applying for and working with? Because in your interview process, it's a two-way street. They're selling themselves to you and you're selling yourself to them. And so having a foundation as to what it is that you want from your job and what it is that you find valuable, whether that's the environment, the supervisor that you're working under, the goals that you have for yourself in your own growth as a career, in whatever career it is that you're looking towards. And so, yeah, networking and maintaining those relationships with people that you are really fond with and have really good rapport with at Fresno State, really vital, incredibly important. And I encourage everyone to find those mentors at Fresno State. They're there and they want to work with you.
Awesome. And hopefully the audience is noticing that networking is not just I met someone and asked for advice. Like, these are ongoing relationships, meaningful connections. And I love how Mark said, it doesn't have to be scary. Sometimes it can be really fun to meet people. So we're going to go over to our next question that has to do with more about kind of some of the mistakes or lessons you learned along the way of networking, right? Sometimes things don't go as planned and you made a mistake, like looking back at it, oh my God, I should approach this differently. So we'll begin with Mark. If you can share with us maybe a lesson learned or a mistake you made in the past when you were networking.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you kind of led me in with that comment. I think one of the biggest things is networking doesn't have to be scary. And I'm referring to when you go to a conference or a career fair. I call myself an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert. I can be that wallflower, or I can walk in and have a lot of confidence. It all depends on my nature of the day. And what I wish somebody had told me is it's okay to take baby steps. Set a goal that you can attain when you go to a conference. I'm going to talk to one career or one attendee, or I'm going to talk to two. Don't feel like you have to talk to all of them, because that is just going to stifle you. It's going to make you even more tense, more nervous. And I wish somebody would have told me that. My mentor at the Career Center, one of my mentors, Jody, recognized that in me, and she sent me to the Ag Fair. At the time, I was working with students in the College of Arts and Humanities. Now, there were two things. One, I thought, Ag Fair. I work with students in Arts and Humanities. The second was, career fair. I got to go interact. Because that can be scary for me. And she knew both of those things. I went, I made one goal, take that first step. Walked around. 30 minutes later, I walked up and did my elevator pitch to one company. It was the USDA. And I stood there and talked to them for 30 minutes about opportunities for students in the arts and humanities. That was very eye-opening for me, because it taught me so much, not just as a career advisor, career counselor, career coach, but also about myself, and that I have to be confident in what I do know. You're not expected to know everything. You're starting your career. So utilize that network. And I really wish that I had the network talk with somebody when I was a student, because it was more implied at the time. And so I would have taken more stock, and definitely wish I would have stayed in contact with some of my my past network. So that's what I would have done different, is simply be bold a little bit more often, as well as keep those contacts.
Right on. And just a quick promotion again for our career and internship fair happening March 9th. We're looking to host it at the Save More Center here, really close to campus. I know a student asked me that in the Q&A, so definitely that would be a great event to attend as a student. And Mark mentioned an ag fair. That one's happening February 23rd at the Satellite Student Union. So I'm going to pass it over to Christina. I'm sorry. We'll start with, sorry, Christina. So we'll go with you on what is a lesson learned about networking or a mistake you made along the way?
So I think something that I gradually began to learn over time is that you are constantly networking, constantly, wherever you're at, in whatever arena you're at. It's an opportunity to network. And that doesn't mean like you got your networking hat, who am I going to meet? Like it's you're meeting people. Networking is building relationships. You're making friends, you're making connections. And so I think I undervalued some of the arenas that I was making connections, that now that I've reached a different space in my life, I've discovered, oh, hey, working at the martial arts studio is really bleeding into this, and I can connect with this person now a little deeper than I thought that I really could. When reflecting back previously on that, it was like, oh, that's just kind of something I did on the side back then, but it's really bled into even just some of the work that I'm doing now. And then I also have a yoga teacher training. I did so in the sense of I'm moving to the Bay Area and I need to make friends. I like yoga. Let's just throw myself into this 3-month intern or training, and let's see how I can make friends. And in that process, I made friends with a career counselor who really knew how to help focus my intention for what I was looking for in a job, asking questions that I didn't even know that I needed to ask. Going to a spiritual retreat, meeting people there that were also therapists that have gone down this track, and lawyers, different people that are all experiencing working with people, where you can connect in ways that you didn't realize that you were able to connect. And so just having an openness. I know that there are career fairs and different things that you can do, but also paying attention to your interests, your hobbies. What are you passionate about? What do you enjoy? What do you love to do? And that energy, that fervor for your passions will help you connect to people and keep you on the path of where it is that you really want to go. And just maintaining space for yourself to explore those things that may not necessarily be this career oriented thing, but they're another part of your identity that are really important too. And you never know who you're going to meet there. So having that openness and maintaining value for the other aspects of you as you're going on your career journey, I think is something that I really have learned over this course of networking, and continuing to be open that you're always networking all the time.
Mhm. I really appreciate that you gave that perspective, Christina. One of my mentors said, especially when you're out in an internship site or a job, every day's an interview, especially when you're interning. So also, you never know who you're going to meet at the grocery market. So I love that openness to connection. So I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie for this question. And what is a lesson learned? You share being in different settings and different companies. What is something you learned along the way of networking?
Well, something that I've learned that I would consider probably my biggest networking mistake was when I was a young college student. I was very shy, and I made myself invisible because I was shy and I didn't want to talk to my professors or my classmates or my bosses or my coworkers, just because I was nervous. And over time, I realized that the only person that was hurting was myself, because I wasn't getting to know the people around me. And when advancing a career, you want to have people behind you who can support you. And so the biggest lesson I learned is to be visible and make yourself visible. And Like something I do now, even at work still, is I'll say hi to every single person that walks past me. Even if they don't say hi back, I'll keep saying hi every day because I want them to get to know my face and know that I work there. And that has led to a lot of great conversations with people that I work with. Because the more you say hi, the more it leads into sort of a friendship and a camaraderie where you can talk with one another. And then you can find out even more places where someone may have connections that can help you out. And so even just something as simple as saying hi to every person that walks by is enough to get you out there and get you visible and help you start creating that network that you will need in your career. So I would just recommend, as a college student, don't be afraid to talk to your peers, and don't be afraid to talk to your boss and faculty and staff and everyone, because you never know. And honestly, me being able to connect with the people at Fresno State is what got me a lot of my jobs that I have now, is just having those people who will always back you up, because they have seen your hard work and they're happy to vouch for it. So always just remaining visible, I think, is the most important thing.
Excellent. The hello, the good morning. That's a great way to kind of invite conversations. So one of our panelists has to leave a bit early before the end of the hour. So she's gonna give her input on the last question that I have for you guys before we open the Q&A. So Christina, so any parting wisdom to our viewers or anybody that watches the recording, what is some advice you have for them in terms of networking?
Some advice I'd share is just go for it. Go for it. The worst thing that can happen is that they say no and you're back at, where you were. Reaching out to people on LinkedIn, even if it seems far-fetched. Like people are doing it all the time. I feel like in the Central Valley, it felt a little different to me. It felt a little funky, but coming to the Bay Area, it's very common. It's very much a social thing. So like kind of getting out of the Central Valley headspace of like the rest of the world is really like very much communicating on LinkedIn, and they're connecting. There's things like Linktree as well. And there's a lot of different things that are out there that people are connecting on. And if you're reaching out to somebody, follow up, continue. I know that was something Daniel really helped me understand. And I think I really understood it once I had a student reach out to me, but didn't continue to follow up with the questions that she was wanting responded to. And, the people that you're working with are very open to a lot of, I'm very open, I know, when reaching out or when people reach out to me, but also I am very busy. So if you make an appointment with them, try and stay on top of that. It's just kind of a respect thing both ways. I know some people like to do email and some people like to stay online. I happen to be a person that likes to talk on the phone. So if you schedule a time, like it's kind of easier, at least for me. I'm like, I can drive and speak to you and tell you all of the ins and outs, and in between some of those busier areas. But yeah, follow up, follow through, stay open to who you're networking with. Remember, you're always networking in whatever area that you're at. Find a mentor, build some mentorships that you have. I know some people are like, how do you do that? It doesn't have to be super like, will you be my mentor kind of thing. It's, just building that relationship with a professor, connecting with them, whoever really speaks to your heart and that you feel connected with, talking to them, asking for advice, and just connecting to them in that way. I think that has been so valuable for me, and recognizing your worth that you're providing your potential job opportunity. Remembering that it's a two-way street. You're selling yourself to them and they're selling themselves to you. So having your questions as well as to what it is that you want, what is your intention, what are the things that you want from your career, and letting that be okay. Like if a good career environment is something that you're looking for, asking those questions about what the environment is like. If a supervisor, having good rapport with them, asking to interview the supervisor. Like you can request those things. And so maintaining your worth in that space as well, I think is something so valuable. Don't ever forget it. You're providing your career space a service. So yeah, that's kind of some of the advice I have for everybody. It's been a pleasure to kind of share some of that and give back. But
All
yeah.
right. Thanks, Christina, for all the wisdom and advice you shared with us. I know you might probably have to log in shortly. So thank you so much for participating. Um, and hopefully we stay connected on LinkedIn. All right,
Yes,
take care.
take care. And if anybody else, feel free to contact me. I'm Christina Martinez, AMFT, I think, on LinkedIn. Feel free, reach out to me. But no, I want to talk to you on the phone. So,
Excellent.
all right. Bye.
Bye. All right, we're gonna pass it over to Mark. Any parting wisdoms, golden nuggets on networking?
Yeah, just I want to touch on something Christina said. I love the idea of, reach out to those professors. I really want to remind all of you that your faculty and staff, your academic advisors, all of them have had a life prior to where they're at, and they may have a very unique background. Turn to them. They have life experience. They've gone through the journey that you are currently on. That's what they're there for. So I do herald that idea of building that relationship. Probably one of my biggest things is there's two. Because we're talking a lot about LinkedIn and online networking, connect, don't collect. Don't just collect people just to collect people. Make them worthwhile. Connect with them. You may get some that say no, and that's okay. You just let those go and you find others. Simply collecting doesn't benefit you. You want to make those connections. And then lastly, don't burn bridges, because burning bridges affects your network. You never know where the connection lies. A really cool thing on LinkedIn is you can kind of see if you have some interesting connections between who knows who, based off of just simply looking at, if I look at Jay Daniel, him and I have some people in common. But the other day I discovered that one of my friends in career actually has a connection to somebody that I worked with in theater that isn't in California. And I just found that so fascinating. And so I immediately was like, how do you know this person? And so just realize that it may be a big world, but the 6 degrees of separations is real, and it can affect your career, both positively and negatively. So just keep that in mind. Don't burn bridges. Be professional, even though sometimes it is difficult.
Thanks for that, Mark. And Stephanie, can you close us with some, words of wisdom, golden nuggets of networking?
Yeah, so basically, I'm going to tell you what I wish someone had told me when I was in college and starting out my career. And really, it's just that it's so important to talk to your professors and your classmates and your bosses and your coworkers. And if you're involved on campus, talking to those staff members, getting to know them, and forming those relationships. And then on top of that, again, LinkedIn is very important. Once you form those connections, something I always do is just I'll immediately go add them on LinkedIn, because that way they're not going to forget immediately about you. They're going to remember, oh, we had a conversation the other day and I remember this face. So if something does come up, they can find you and they know where to find you if you don't see them regularly. So I always made an effort to do that with everyone I met at Fresno State and throughout my college experiences. They're all on my LinkedIn, and I connect with them. I've connected them with them a lot over the years, just getting new jobs, needing references, needing letters of recommendation, and professors and anybody on campus is usually way more than willing to help you out with those types of things. And I wish I had known that earlier. And then I also wish I knew how easy it was to just say hi to each person that you walk by, and how big of an impact that makes in terms of making you visible and rememberable. And a simple hi every morning can lead to a friendship or lead to a larger conversation. And it has for me, and it's been super helpful. So just something as simple as that kind of takes the scariness out of it, especially if you're shy like I was when I first started college. It's just a simple hi. And if they don't say hi back, that's okay. Keep saying hi until they do. One day they will. And then also just it was so important for me to get involved on campus, because I learned everything the campus has to offer in terms of programs for students, and even just the amenities on campus that you have access to. And those are all great ways to go out and meet more people and meet your peers, and even meet some people who could be professional references for you one day. So really, really most important is just staying visible, but not making it complicated, just doing simple things to get people's attention. And then also engaging in LinkedIn, because it's a great way to reconnect with people who you've already had conversations with. So those are all the things I wish I knew when I was much younger.
Excellent. And just in closing, I really appreciated that you mentioned that follow up after you go to an event and you meet someone. And when you send that request on LinkedIn, or if you're going to do it via email, shoot an email to them. If you got a business card, mention where you met them, right? Sometimes they meet a ton of people out there. So just saying, I met you at the alumni panel when you share your experience, or I met you at the career fair or at this presentation or workshop, and I was impacted by what you said. I hope we can connect. So just kind of, help them out, so then they make the connection of where you met them. That can, help, getting the connection invite accepted. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to our attendees. If there's any questions you have for them, or that you want to type in the chat, feel free to do so. I believe I got a question earlier, as some of you may type. And I see a hand raised. So let's see, are you able to? I see Hannah raised her hand. Can you type your question in the chat, Hannah? And as you do that, I had another question. If there are any other conferences or events that I recommend or anybody else recommends, once again, or career fairs or different webinars, please continue attending. If depending on your industry, there might be conferences. I know, Mark, in your case, if you can briefly speak about, like, if you want to name drop the conferences you attended in your field.
Sure. One really popular one that is geared specifically for college level, for college students going into the field of theater tech or theater design, is called USITT. And then there was one specifically for lighting called LDI, and there would be some sound companies there too. But the USITT conference was typically a week long with workshops, and then a lot of businesses attended with their equipment. Colleges went there to showcase their programs. You could get resumes and portfolios looked at. So it's really a great space, because all those people have the same thing in common: theater tech. When I went, I wish somebody had told me that and reminded me, all of these are your peers. These are people who will accept you. You don't have to be nervous. Consequently, I didn't make as many connections as I wish that I potentially could have. So look for those conferences that are industry specific.
Got it. Stephanie, any conferences or events you attend that you feel that could be useful for students?
Well, I was just thinking even just attending, career fairs, or if you're in a career and there's a professional development opportunity, take that opportunity to learn, because there's always going to be more people there that you can connect with. And that's why I say it's so important to get involved on campus, because there's always events going on. I mean, now I'm sure a lot of them are virtual, but that doesn't mean you can't make those connections in the same way. And so I know when I was in college, I did a lot of service learning, because I felt like getting out in the community was a great way to connect with local nonprofits and local businesses and other people who may be a great connection to have. And then also I attended career fairs, and if anything, even if you don't make a lot of personal connections at a career fair, it's a great place to get ideas, especially if you're a student who's unsure of their career path. Because I was unsure for a long time, but I felt like when I would go to the career fairs and saw everything available to me, it was really helpful for me in picking a path. And again, if you go to each table and talk to them, they're always happy to tell you more, and that's just another connection. So really just being involved, definitely.
God, it's definitely, I think I got a great question for you. How about joining outside organizations or like community organizations? Or if you have any recommendations of like professional networking groups, like in the area?
Um, to be honest, I am not involved in anything at this moment. Um, but I know that like even at my workplace, since I'm not at Fresno State as much anymore, I don't really know all the events that are available. But even at my work, I make every effort to join an event and a training, I just involve myself in all aspects of, and even with Fresno State, I always made sure to keep an eye out for events and like things like this, where I was invited here to speak today. This is a great opportunity to network in itself. So I think just keeping an eye out on, because we get a million emails every day and you never know what you're being invited to. And I say just take the chance, because in one way or another, it could have a really positive impact on your career just by being around different people.
And it looks like we got some suggestions in the chat. So those of you still tuned in, Toastmasters, there's a local chapter, I believe they help young people develop their public speaking skills. Chamber of Commerce, and on LinkedIn, back to LinkedIn, I see a few different kind of industry fairs in the community of healthcare related manufacturing. A few of those happened recently. And yes, I am aware of the Fresno Leading Young Professionals, FLYP. So that's a great kind of way to meet young professionals in our area. There's one question for you, Mark. The question states, I was curious about the 6 degrees of separation. What does that mean? And it looks like you're muted.
And I am muted. I do want to make one comment about, I know this topic is networking, but it ties in. Internships are a great way to increase your network. So it's never too early for network or for internships. Go meet with your career advisor. Start that process if you haven't. Like I said, it's never too early. Okay, so 6 degrees of separation has to do with connections. And so it really applies for networking. 6 degrees of separation, an example, I was working on cruise ships. We were porting in New York. One of my graduate colleagues from University of Arizona was working in New York. We met up for lunch. He brought fellow colleagues of his sitting around the table. We're talking, I make comment that I had gone to Fresno State. It had already been 15 years, I believe, maybe 10. And one of his colleagues says, Fresno State, my boyfriend went there. When did you go there? And I proceeded to tell her and asked her what major, because, well, it's a small world. And she said, theater. He's a shop foreman at one of the theaters. What's his name? She told me, and I said, yeah, him and I ran around together for 3 years. I mean, we were joined at the hip most of the time, classes together, working on shows. So we're talking New York to California, 10 years difference. That was what, a 3 degree of separation, because of it's about knowing somebody, knowing somebody, knowing somebody. And there's games where the idea is that we are all separated by only 6 degrees of separation. So it could be something as simple as knowing somebody because you met somebody that they know, is how it works. And LinkedIn works like that. They'll show you the separation or the connections, I should say. So that's what 6 degrees of separation is all about.
Thanks for that, Mark. Yep, you never know who knows somebody. So with this, we're going to go ahead and close today's webinar. Thank you so much, panelists. As we mentioned, myself and the panelists, we're all on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out and connect with us. If you need to build your LinkedIn, we have a web page with great videos to coach you through that, or connect with the Career Center. We can give you great feedback. So once again, Stephanie, Mark, pleasure meeting you or seeing you again. And thank you so much for that advice you have shared with students. And there's a few thank yous from the panelists. So once again, thank you. And there's future webinars coming up. So stay tuned.